evening. Welcome to the regularly scheduled Planning Commission meeting in the City of Westminster, February 21st, 2024, 6:30 p.m. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Clerk, would you mind calling roll?
Thank you, Chair. Commissioner Bowie?
Here.
Commissioner Hamadi?
Here.
Commissioner Power?
Here.
Vice Chair Anderson?
Here.
And Chair Wolbert?
Here.
Chair, you have all members present.
Fantastic. All right, now's the time when we salute the flag. If you wouldn't mind, please stand with me. Place your right hand over the heart. Ready? Begin. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. On to item number 3, report from the Planning Secretary on late communication items.
Thank you, Chair. So we do have a late communication that was sent out later today for public hearing item 1. Copies have been distributed at the dais and made available in the lobby for the public. Also, we have added this online for public reference, and that concludes my report.
Fantastic. Item number 4, ex parte communications. This is the time where this section is intended to allow all officials the opportunity to reveal or disclose any disclosures regarding site visits or ex parte communications about the public hearing and regular business items. Do we have any at this time?
No.
I do. I drove by the site on the agenda item public 8.1. I was able to go by and visit the site.
I also visited the site yesterday for item 8.1.
All right, if there's nothing else, we will go on to item number 5, special presentations. I don't think we have any tonight, so we'll go ahead and skip over that. Item number 6 is oral communications. This is the time of the meeting that members of the public may address the Planning Commission on matters of public interest, which pertain specifically to the city and are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Planning Commission. Members of the public wishing to address the public hearings items shall do so at the time of the public hearing. So if you're here to talk on a public hearing item, wait till we get to agenda item number 8. Comments shall be limited to 3 minutes per speaker. To address the Planning Commission, please complete a blue request to speak form that is provided at the entrance of the council chambers. And submit that form to the Planning Commission clerk. When your name is called, please step to the podium. And at that time, state your name and the city of residence for the record, which is optional. Do we have any oral communications for tonight?
We do, Chair. We have one for Terry Raines.
Good evening, Commissioners. Terry Raines, Westminster. At your last meeting, I suggested holding a joint study session with you and the City Council regarding recent housing development laws and their negative impact on the city, retaining local control over these projects. I have not seen any movement toward that happening yet. Sooner than later would be best. On February 14th, the City Council approved another $250,000 contract with Park Consulting Group for Intergov and finance system enhancement, support, and maintenance, and for implementation of the Intergov Citizen Self-Service Portal, which was promised 6 years ago. In 2018, the city signed a $1 million contract with Tyler Technologies for finance, HR, code enforcement, and community development software, including Intergov, and paid Park Consulting Group tens of thousands more to consult on the implementation. In May 2020, the city removed the Intergov Business Management Suite and Intergov Self-Service Portal from the Tyler contract, which may or may not have been related to the city outsourcing business licenses. Not sure because no one ever replied to my emails. Intergov features for planning and building that were contractually promised originally are still not fully implemented 6 years later because staff did not want to activate or utilize them, or they did not understand how to do so. The city then paid SDI Presence thousands more for an Intergov system assessment presented to the council in May of last year, stating a major Intergov upgrade was needed to activate features promised in the original contract. Director Lynn and Planning Manager Racky told me the upgrade was completed, but that it just changed the operating platform from Windows Explorer to Chrome with no new features. But yet, a self-service portal was added to the Planning Department's website recently, but has since been removed. Bottom line, this has been an unnecessary and costly mess. I was a project manager for several major software installations in the private sector, and I know firsthand what it takes to ensure a successful installation, training, upgrades, and maintenance. The city's costly issues here appear to be related to incompetent and/or lazy city staff, and former leadership, not vendor or product limitations. As a result, the city's manager's office has now had to take over the project to ensure eventual success and full implementation and compliance. Other cities fully utilize EnerGov features with little to no problem. As planning commissioners, you should ask yourselves why Westminster is still light years behind other cities' planning and building development technology and customer service. The lack of online applicant and public access, on-demand reporting, quality service or quality customer service, and ongoing staffing issues are all greatly impacting the city's ability to attract quality developers and projects. And the inability to attract quality developers and projects has a direct adverse impact on the city's ability to grow revenue, which you all know is desperately needed to avoid bankruptcy in the not-too-distant future. I'd like to acknowledge Ashton being clerking the meeting. Good job. Glad to see you here. I will be back to comment on the public hearing item later. Thank you. And just to emphasize, EnerGov is the software that's used by the Planning and Building Division, so it is applicable to this commission to hear this. Thank you.
Chair, we have no further speakers.
All right, I'd like to go ahead and close oral communications. We don't have any minutes from the last meeting, so we'll skip item number 7, and we will go to item number 8, our public hearings. Anyone wishing to speak on an open public hearing item, complete that blue speaker request form that's provided at the entrance of the council chambers. Submit the form to the Planning Commission clerk. As stated before, when your name is called, please step to the podium and state your name and city of residence for the record. Again, each attendee will have 3 minutes to comment on each public hearing item. The applicant or their designee will have 12 minutes to speak and will also be provided a 3-minute rebuttal. With exception of the applicant or designee, all attendees may only speak once. The Planning Commission may use its discretion to allow a speaker to exceed the allotted time or may ask a speaker to return to answer additional questions. So we will move on to public hearing item number 8.1, 2023-0646, the conditional use permit development review and affordable housing density bonus.
Thank you, Chair Wilbert, members of the Planning Commission. At this time, I'd like to introduce some of the staff who are in attendance that will be involved in the presentation and their ability to answer questions that the Planning Commission may have. The first, of course, is our project planner, Sandy Kim, and our planning consultant, Debbie Dressler, who have worked hard on the staff report and the attachments. Also here tonight, we have members of the city's Public Works Department, including Tuan Pham and Daniel Shea in the City Engineering Division. We also have Bill Pham in the Traffic Division. Also tonight joining us is Deputy City Attorney Lisa Kranitz, who is also part of the project team to help us with questions related to the applicable housing laws. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Sandy and Debbie, who have a presentation for us.
Good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, and Commissioners. Before you is a project case number 2023-0646, a proposal to develop a lower-income senior housing development, also known as Milton Manor. The proposed project is located at 13800, 13802, and 13812 Milton Avenue, and identified in yellow highlighted area in the aerial map. The project site is currently vacant and is comprised of 3 legal parcels totaling approximately 1.18 acres in size. The site is located on the east side of Milton Avenue and at the T-intersection of Heffley Street. The proposed project includes a development review for the development of 54-unit within 1 3-story building, a conditional use permit for senior housing development to safeguard the health, safety, and general welfare of seniors, and to ensure compatibility with surrounding properties. A density bonus to accommodate the development of lower-income senior rental units under the state density bonus law. As shown, the project site is surrounded by multifamily residential uses to the south, west, and north, and a single-family uses to the east. The project site and the site to the north and south are zoned R4, multifamily residential districts with zoning, with the general plan land use designation of residential high density, which allows up to 25 dwelling units per acre. The properties to the west are zone R2 and R3, and the land use designation of residential medium density, which would allow up to 14 units per acre, and to the north. Predominantly R1 with the land use description of residential low which will allow single-family homes. Now I'd like to turn it over to Debbie, and she will finish the presentation.
Thank you. The project includes 54 units within a 3-story structure. All units except for the manager's unit will be restricted to low-income senior citizen occupants aged 55 or older. The unit type includes 52 one-bedroom, one-bath, and 2 two-bedroom, one-bath. All units except for the 2-bedroom unit will be occupied by the senior tenants, with the remaining 2-bedroom unit intended for the on-site manager, who will be living on-site. Other on-site staff includes a service coordinator who helps with the residents with activities, transportation, and appointments. There will also be a facilities management manager who will be in charge of all equipment operations, services, repairs, landscaping, as well as security. All of the staff are full-time Retirement Housing Foundation employees. In addition to staff on site, the building will also include secure door access via a card or fob and video surveillance cameras monitoring all indoor and outdoor common areas and corridors. Thank you. This is a typical floor plan for the 1-bedroom unit. It is approximately 497 square feet. This is the typical one for the 2-bedroom, which is approximately 715 square feet. Amenities include a community kitchen, lounge area. There'll be numerous community rooms for arts and crafts, meetings, library use. They will have a common area for laundry and mail and a resident storage area. The exterior amenities include a central landscape courtyard with an outdoor water element. There'll be outdoor decks, and on the 3rd level is a 9,928 square foot open space balcony type. The project also includes 6,227 square feet of landscape and 3,230 square feet of decorative hardscape, which is approximately 21% of the total project area. The city's zoning code requires only 15%, so the project is exceeding it. The on-site vehicular circulation is provided with a one-way direction drive with the main vehicular access located on the north side of the project site off of Milton Avenue. The proposed development includes 19 off-street parking spaces with 4 accessible parking spaces provided along the rear property line. The entry driveways will be enhanced with paving at both driveways. The site's design encompasses a reduction in the required 20-foot front yard setback to 4 inches. Correspondingly, the north and south side yard setback exceeds the required minimum 7-foot side yard setback, with the project providing about 35 and 40-foot side yard setbacks, and respectively to provide for the internal circulation. Additionally, the building's east, which is the rear setback, exceeds the required 20-foot minimum rear setback and provides a setback of approximately 55 feet from the rear property line. Further, the development includes an approximately 9,200 square foot central landscape courtyard that further steps back the building's rear elevation an additional 75 feet, resulting in a portion of the building set back just over 130 feet from the rear property line. Site improvements would include a 6-foot tall wall along the rear property line and along the north property line. It'll extend to a 3-foot height within the 20-foot front yard setback area. On the southern property line, which is a side property line, there's an existing block wall that will be protected in place. The applicant proposes to extend that wall at a 3-foot height, approximately 10 more feet within the front yard setback area. The portion of the roadway along the property frontage from the center line of Milton, oh, is it for this one, or do I have my next slide? I want to explain this, okay. Public improvements along the property frontage include a 30-foot right-of-way dedicated with a 20-foot previously dedicated but not yet recorded, and a 10-foot to be dedicated and recorded. The public improvements within the 10-foot right-of-way portion includes a 6-foot wide landscape parkway and a 4-foot wide sidewalk. The applicant will be undergrounding some of the existing power poles and utility lines and a new street light along the property frontage. The building has a modern farmhouse-style architectural design. Building articulation is achieved through varying roof and parapet heights and building facade offsets and materials. The building's top of the roof is shown at 41 feet 7 inches and the top of the parapet at 33 feet and 7 inches. The exterior finish will consist of an asphalt shingle roof, a mix of white and gray cement plaster, gray and beige color board and batten and horizontal siding, and some dark bronze metal awnings. This is more just a little background on some of the state laws that are affecting this project. The density bonus law was enacted in 1979 and amended several times since. The intent of the density bonus law is to incentivize developers in exchange for offering to build or donate land for affordable or senior units. This is accomplished by requiring jurisdictions to grant additional residential units above what is otherwise allowed by the site's land use designation, as well as allow certain development concessions and waivers for housing projects that are income or age restricted. An increase in project density is set on a sliding scale based upon the percentage of affordable units at each income level. For example, a project with a 20% base unit pre-density bonus set aside for moderate income households would be entitled to a density increase of 15%. However, that same 20% set aside for very low income households would be entitled to a density increase of 50%. So the whole thing's based on the sliding per each project. As proposed, oh, I apologize, I missed something on the last slide I wanted to discuss. Other benefits of the density bonus law include incentives intended to help make a development more affordable, housing and senior housing economically feasible. This could include an increase in building height requirements, as well as a waiver or reduction of development standards, including reduced parking standards. As proposed, the project includes 100% low, very low, and extremely low units, and is therefore entitled to an 80% density bonus for lower income households. The general plan land use designation of the site is residential high density, which allows up to 25 dwelling units per acre. Based on a 1.18 acre site, the project can accommodate a base density of 30 units for the project site, and an 80% bonus yields 24 additional units. In total, the applicant is entitled to a total of 54 residential units. Although the percentage can vary, the applicant proposes to divide the 53 units, less the manager's unit, into 6 units for extremely low senior households, 6 units for very low senior households, and the remaining 41 units for low-income senior households. In compliance with the state law, the applicant shall be required to enter into affordable housing agreement with the city and record a covenant that sets maximum incomes and rents for the units for a period of 55 years. Rents will be set at an affordable rent as defined by the Health and Safety Code, and per the annual income limits pursuant to the California Department of Housing and Community Development. In addition to the entitled density increase at the request of the applicant, a jurisdiction is required to provide one or more incentive or concessions to each project which qualifies for a density bonus via a reduction in site development standards or modification of zoning code or architectural design requirements, which would result in identifiable and actual cost reductions of the project. The number of required incentives or concession is also based on the percentage of affordable units in the project and can range between 1 to 4 incentives and concessions granted. As proposed, the project includes 100% low, very low, and extremely low income units and is therefore entitled to a total of 4 incentives or concessions. However, the applicant has not requested any concessions. Additionally, at the request of an applicant, a jurisdiction is required to provide a waiver or reduction of development standards. As stated per state law, the city is not permitted to apply any development standards that would physically preclude the construction of the project at its permitted density and with the granted concessions and incentives. It is also important to note that waivers or reductions of development standards do not count as incentives or concessions, and there is no limit to the number of development standard waivers that may be requested or granted. Accordingly, the applicant is requesting 5 development waivers, which include an increase in the building height from 2 stories of 35 feet to 3 stories at 42 feet. Also requesting a reduction in the front yard setback from 20 feet to 4 inches. Reduction in minimum floor area from 750 feet to 497 square feet for the 1-bedroom units and 715 square feet for the 2-bedroom units. And lastly, a reduction on on-site open space from 250 square feet per unit to just under 184 square feet per unit. In addition to the development waivers and the reductions discussed in the previous slide, under state density bonus law, a for-rent senior housing project that is 100% affordable to lower income, exclusive of a manager's unit, and is located within a half-mile of an accessible bus route that operates at least 8 times per day, then upon the request of the developer, the city shall not impose any vehicular parking standards. The Orange County Transit Authority currently provides bus and paratransit services within the city of Westminster. Existing bus service routes within 1/2 mile of the project site includes Route 60 that serves trips between Long Beach and Tustin. There is a Bravo Route 560 also serving trips between Long Beach and Santa Ana. Both bus routes do operate more than 8 times per day and are accessed via Westminster Boulevard within that 1/2 mile range. As proposed, the for-rent project includes 100% lower income senior units within a 1/2 mile of Orange County Transportation Authority's fixed bus route services that operates at least 8 times per day. Under the state law, the city shall not impose any vehicular parking standards, and the project's parking requirement is 0 spaces per unit. The applicant has, however, provided 19 off-street parking spaces that will be allocated as shown in the parking allocation table. An analysis of the environmental. The proposed project has been reviewed pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act, also known as CEQA, and the requirements of the city, and has been deemed exempt from further CEQA analysis under the categorical exemption 15332 for infill development projects. The exceptions listed under section 15300.2 do not apply, as discussed further in the categorical exemption document included in attachment 3 of the staff report. The project site itself is less than 5 acres and has no value as a habitat for endangered, rare, or threatened species. Further, the development of 54 multifamily units, including 53 lower-income senior housing units, will not result in any significant effects relating to traffic, noise, air quality, or water quality, and can be adequately served by all required utilities and public services. The entitlement includes a development review. The project has been analyzed alongside state and city development regulations guiding the development of affordable projects and found it to be consistent with the state and city's development and design standards for new multifamily residential development. The project provides 19 off-street parking spaces, exceeding the state's parking requirements for 100% affordable senior housing projects. The project site is currently vacant and is comprised of 3 parcels averaging approximately 0.39 acres each. The applicant is required to file and record a lot line adjustment for the purpose of consolidating the 3 existing parcels into a single lot. The general plan encourages the consolidation of small parcels and specifies the importance of providing a variety of dwelling unit types and affordability levels to accommodate a variety of household types, lifestyles, and income levels, including senior housing, to allow for maximum independence and the ability to remain in the community. The other entitlement being requested is the conditional use permit. It is suitable for, the project site is identified as an underutilized residential property suitable for residential development located near other existing multifamily residential uses to the south, west, and north, as well as single family to the east. The site is currently served by all necessary utilities and services. All existing public utilities that presently serve the site will have the capacity to serve the proposed development without any significant impact to services. Further, the public improvement within the public right-of-way, including the new sidewalks, curb and gutter, driveway approaches, street lights, and the undergrounding of the existing above-ground utility poles along the project frontage would be provided. The project provides health and safety related qualities, including an in-house manager and a service coordinator who helps the residents with activities, transportation. There's also a facility maintenance manager who will be in charge of all equipment operations, services, repairs, and landscaping and security. In addition to staff on site, the building will include secure door access via the card fob and video surveillance cameras that will be monitoring all the indoor and outdoor common areas and corridors. The project as proposed complies with the applicable provisions of the Westminster Code as governed by state law. Further, the project exceeds the state parking requirements for 100% affordable senior housing project by providing the 19 parking spaces. The project also includes 6,227 square feet of landscaping and 3,230 square feet of decorative hardscape, which exceeds the total 15% requirement. Lastly, restrictive covenants will be recorded containing the conditions applicable to the development, guaranteeing that the designated dwelling units will remain affordable to senior households for a minimum of 55 years. And the last one is density bonus. The project is in compliance with the state density bonus law. Supports Westminster's housing needs and the needs of seniors' households earning less than 80% area median income. The household, as proposed, assists the city in meeting its current regional housing need allocations, also known as RHNA. They have required 9,759 units, including 1,881 for extremely low income households and 1,473 low-income households for the period of 21 through 29. Further, as per the city housing element, the city supports the use of regulatory incentives such as density bonuses, which allows developers the opportunity to exceed the maximum district density for lower income households, as well as fee waivers and parking reductions to offset the cost of affordable housing units, including sites listed as an underutilized residential property suitable for residential reuse. This thus creates an opportunity to achieve the maximum density capacity consistent with those defined in the general plan. There are two relevant state laws that affect this project. The Housing Accountability Act basically states that cities cannot disapprove affordable housing projects unless they make written findings that one of the 5 circumstances ranging from violation of state or federal law, public health, and safety standards such as lack of sufficient water and sewer capacity. I'm going to back up a little bit because I've got myself out of line here. But the Housing Accountability Act has been in effect since 1982. The intent of the Housing Accountability Act was to address the housing availability crisis by establishing measures to promote and facilitate the development of housing. In 2017, the Housing Accountability Act was amended to expand its provisions to effectively limit the capacity of local governments to deny, reduce the density, or render housing development projects infeasible if it is consistent with the objective standards at the time of its filing. The second relevant bill is Senate Bill 330. It establishes the Housing Crisis Act of 2019. This became effective on January 1st, 2020. The objective of the Housing Crisis Act is to increase residential unit development, protect existing housing inventory, and expedite the permit processing of housing projects. The key provisions of the Housing Authority a housing project may not be denied or reduced in density if it conforms with all the objective standards. For example, as you can see in the slide here, objective design standard is, would say a minimum front setback of 4 feet, while a subjective design standard would say something like a front yard setback consistent with the character of the neighborhood. An objective design standard is independent and uniformly verifiable. A subjective development standard demonstrates preferences while allowing discretion and flexibility. Under the housing law, a housing development project may only be denied or have its density reduced if the city can find that the project would have a specific adverse impact on public health and safety. And a specific adverse impact is defined as a significant, quantifiable, direct, and unavoidable impact based on objective, identified written public health or safety standards, in effect when the application was deemed complete and there is no feasible method to mitigate the impact. A denial of the housing development has several consequences, and it's based on the substantial evidence. They're listed here in on the slide here regarding concessions or incentives do not result in identifiable actual cost reductions, and the concession or incentives would have a specified adverse impact as defined. The concession or incentive would be contrary to state or federal law. It is important to note that the jurisdiction shall bear the burden of proof for the denial of a requested concession or incentive. With that said, there is some late communication that has been provided, and I believe it's on your desk. The late communication includes a revised resolution, the applicant's request to amend condition number 17, a revised environmental determination, revised trip generation study, updated traffic memo from staff, as well as emails regarding the project. With that, staff is recommending that the Planning Commission recommend the mayor and city council to approve case number 2023-0646 with the condition number 17 revised as shown on the revised resolution included in your late communication plate, as well as recommending approval of the conditional use permit, development review, and the affordable housing density bonus. This concludes my presentation. We have staff here, as was mentioned earlier, available to answer any questions, and the applicant is also here and has a presentation.
Thank you very much, staff.
Thank you.
Commissioners, do you have any questions for staff at this time?
Yes, I have a couple of questions here, Chair. And if this isn't the appropriate time, we can cover it later. Why was condition number 17 revised?
The applicant requested that we remove specific number of different income level household units. So for example, for the extremely low income, instead of having a specific number designated now, they would like to have that flexibility to finalize based on their development plan.
And Chair Anderson, I would suggest that we hold off on that question and ask the applicant that question. They could probably indicate why they requested that.
Okay, then I also, and maybe this is for the applicant too, or maybe for our attorney, can the term of affordability be extended beyond 55 years as a part of this project?
The state density bonus law sets the term at 55 years, so no,
Hand up?
55 years.
Oh, 55 years, okay, thank you. And just to clarify, the front yard setback will be 4 inches.
Correct.
So what will be between, I guess, the sidewalk, it'll be the building, and then the 4 inches beyond that is the sidewalk?
Yeah, they have it with landscape with gravel material.
So it's a 4-inch setback from the sidewalk.
Correct.
And the consequences now, if a jurisdiction, if an applicant came in, hypothetical situation to a city, met all the state guidelines and all the guidelines that have come down, and the city still said, nope, we're not going to do it, what could the state do to that jurisdiction?
The courts have been extremely harsh with cities who do not follow all the new required housing laws. The Attorney General can come in and sue you. The applicant can sue you. City of Berkeley was just awarded $1.4 million, against the City of Berkeley. The developer was awarded $1.4 million in attorney's fees, and there was another $2-point-something million awarded against the city for failing to follow the judge's order and approving the affordable housing agreement. So what we are seeing in the legal field is case after case of the court saying, we heard the mission from the legislature, and we understand we need to enforce these very seriously.
Okay, thank you.
In other cities who have not been following the law, courts can step in and take over your approval authorities as well.
Okay, thank you. And in your presentation, Debbie, and maybe you covered it, you did a great job, a lot of information, but did the subject of rents come up, what the actual rents would be at this time for these units? We talked about income.
Yeah, they'll be required to provide right now we only have the 2023 requirements, but at the time when they are ready, they will have to meet the requirements of the housing, the state requirements.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Those are my questions, Chair.
Mr. Chair, I have a couple of questions.
Go ahead, Tony.
Yes, please go to page number 1 of 14. The project applicant is Retirement Housing Foundation. My question is this a LLC or a nonprofit corporation or corporation? And has it had any similar project been successfully in any city of California?
I think this would be really good for the applicant to answer when they come on up.
Okay. And you don't know the status of that corporation or foundation?
We do have the information, I just don't have it memorized in my head, but they do have many, many projects they've built, and I'm sure they can explain those to you.
Okay. The second question is, in case of corporation or anything, does it have, please make sure, have no conflict of interest with any of the people in the city, because we want to, on behalf of the city of Westminster, we don't want anything happening to the city due to conflict of interest, which has to be reviewed to the public before we can authorize the CUP. Okay, that's my major questions.
Of course.
Go ahead.
Ma'am, the project is in the R1 zone, correct?
No.
It is not? R4 zone. So each parcel is R4 zone?
Correct.
Okay, and by the city ordinance, you're allowed to combine all of them together to put that
Correct.
many units?
They will be doing a lot line, they'll be subject to a lot line adjustment.
Okay. Okay. That's it. Thank you.
All right, seeing that we have no other questions at this time, I'd like to go ahead and open the public hearing on this agenda item. Should we call the applicant up first?
Yes, so Chair, I would recommend calling the applicant up and then hearing from the public after, and then we can do a rebuttal if there's any oppositions. So applicant, you could approach the podium, and for the record, please state your name first and last.
Good evening, Chair Walbert and fellow planning commissioners. My name is Eric Higuchi. I am a Retirement Housing Foundation's project manager for Milton Manor. First off, I want to thank Sandy Kim, Deborah Dressler, and all the city staff for their hard work on this application. Truly, it was one of the most thorough reviews I've been through, and thanks to the collaborative effort with staff, the applicant, and our consultant team, we have a very complete application for you to review tonight. I'll try to keep my presentation brief. It's not intended to be a report, a repeat of staff's excellent presentation. Rather, my intention is to fill in the gaps specifically related to how this project connects to your community. Sandy, I have a, great. Next slide, please. So, who are we? Retirement Housing Foundation is a Long Beach-based nonprofit affordable housing provider. I am a consultant for RHF, but for me personally, this has been one of the greatest clients I've ever worked with. It's an organization that has a simple business plan. Their mandate is clear, and it hasn't changed for the past 63 years. They are a nonprofit, and they exist to provide quality, affordable housing for low-income households, primarily to seniors. Their mission is clear, and their staff is also mission-aligned based on my personal experience. RHF manages their own properties, and they hold on to their properties in perpetuity. So not only are they the applicant, they are also a long-term stakeholder in Westminster. Next slide, please. So what is this project, in our opinion, how does this benefit your community? We see four major benefits. One, a major capital investment in Westminster. Two, we are providing affordable senior housing. Three, it's less impactful than the previously approved project. And four, demographics. So first, not only does this represent a $20 million investment into the community, the project will be built all prevailing wage, union labor, and will incorporate the latest sustainable requirements. Next slide, please. And second, I'm sure the question on everyone's mind is, how affordable is affordable? The project is contemplated to serve 3 income levels designated by the California Department of Housing and Community Development, so it's low, very low, and extremely low. Yes, your eyes don't deceive you. That low income, 80% of AMI, is $2,153 a month. The practical reality, and we fully acknowledge this, is that our average senior resident would not be able to afford this rent, which is why many of RHF's residents qualify and utilize Section 8 vouchers for often otherwise discriminated and are specifically directed by county housing authorities to RHF properties. Next slide, please. This was already previously covered. These are the income requirements. Next slide, please. The third benefit is that, in our opinion, this is a better, less impactful project relative to what was previously entitled. The length of our building along the project frontage is 162 feet, whereas the previous project was 166 feet. But the old project was really 218 feet long because looking head on to the site from west to east, you essentially see a wall of structure and garages, whereas we have about a 39-foot setback on both sides. Next slide, please. Yes, our project is taller than the previously proposed project, but one, the third floor window heights have remained the same at 30 feet to the top of window. Two, I think we have a higher quality architecture and much more interesting exterior materials than the stucco proposed in the previous project. And finally, let's talk about setbacks. Next slide, please. We have significantly increased the setback on the north, south, and east side of the property. So the original project was 10-foot setbacks to the north and south. We're now at 35, basically tripled, or doubled, tripled. My math is bad. Rear setback went from 29 to 49, almost doubled. As staff mentioned, we're exceeding the required setbacks pursuant to zoning code. Next slide, please. The summary of the current project versus the previous project. Yes, obviously we have doubled the amount of units than the previous project, but that's not the whole story. Obviously, this is now a senior housing project versus what was an entry-level housing project. We have more affordable units. Interestingly, our net livable has gone down by about 4,000 square feet. Our building footprint's actually reduced. We've increased landscape area. And most importantly, we reduced the number of bedrooms in the comparable projects. Now let's talk about parking. Obviously, 19 is a big difference from 52. Next slide, please. So the project is entitled to 0 parking stalls pursuant to state law. I don't want to rub salt in the wound. I serve on my own planning commission in Tustin, and at the municipal level, we are all grappling with the implications of the practical implementation of state housing law. That being said, in this case, we believe state housing law has been implemented as intended, as it's provided us the opportunity to deliver more high-quality, affordable housing for seniors by allowing us to provide the right number of stalls for this project. Unlike market rate projects, many of our tenants no longer drive for a couple of reasons. One is age. It's a simple fact, as we age, our physical and visual abilities decline. And two is cost. Car ownership in California is expensive, whether it be gas, insurance, registration, the cost of the car itself. These expenses only continue to rise, and fixed incomes only continue to stay fixed. For those able to continue to drive and own a car, parking spaces will be available to residents, and permits will be assigned based upon availability. For residents that do not own a car, as staff mentioned, there are 2 OCTA bus stops within half a mile of the project. OCTA also runs OCGO Senior Mobility Program, a senior non-emergency medical transportation program. The City of Westminster also has WOW, Westminster on Wheels. If merited by demand, RHF may contract with a shuttle service or acquire a shuttle for the property. However, more importantly, and I'll dive into this to the next part of my presentation, we believe that our residents will primarily rely on friends and family members for transportation. Next slide, please. Finally, the fourth benefit is about demographics. So the project location was chosen because it checks all the requisite boxes regarding safety, access to mass transit, and proximity to community amenities like parks, places of worship, grocery, and entertainment. However, this project is uniquely located in one of the state's most ethnically diverse cities, representing multiple significant minority populations whose first generation is frankly aging. third, fourth, and fifth generation individuals like myself can move to states like Texas, Idaho, or Arizona, where housing cost is far cheaper, and with a common language and the benefit of cultural assimilation, allows us to readily plug into most communities in the U.S. However, Westminster's Little Saigon is a prime example of one of the multiple ethnic communities located in Orange County that has a growing senior population whose literal lives depend on living near proximity to ethnic enclaves like Little Saigon. Going back to the top of transportation, for our forecasted population, I don't see OCTA picking them up. It's most likely their adult children picking them up, because not only do they need a ride, they need a translator at the doctor's office. Or their son or daughters picking them up to help them watch their grandkids while mom and dad work. Or their friends drive them to a foreign language service at the church. So RHF will obviously abide by all fair and equal housing opportunity laws, but as I see it, there's an aging demographic of first-generation immigrants, Vietnamese, Korean, and Latino, whose sources of income during retirement are not keeping up with the cost of living in California, simply can't move to other parts of the country. For these growing populations of California, there are few options for independent living besides affordable housing. So to recap, our benefits are, it's a major capital investment in Westminster. We're providing affordable senior housing. It's less impactful than the previous project, and the demographics of Westminster merit more senior affordable housing. So thank you for your time. We'd appreciate the opportunity to address any questions or comments that may arise during the public comment period. In addition, at this time, I'd like to introduce Bob Fard and Rush Porter of Retirement Housing Foundation, and Noel Nguyen, our architect, for an introduction, for a brief introduction, and to let you know there are questions.
Before you leave, I have a question for you.
Let him finish his 3 minutes.
Okay.
Good evening. Bob Fard, VP of Acquisition Development with Retirement Housing Foundation. Chair Wilbert and Westminster Planning Commission, thank you for hearing our project tonight and considering our project. I also want to take a quick moment to thank staff for their diligent work on this project. Just a quick background on Retirement Housing Foundation. Founded in 1961 in Long Beach, California, we're a 63-year-old nonprofit owner, developer, operator, as Eric mentioned, of affordable housing nationwide. We have presence in 27 states, Washington, D.C., U.S. Virgin Islands, and Puerto Rico. We have a rich history of providing clean, quality, affordable housing nationwide. We take pride in our communities, much like your constituents here tonight, and intend on being great neighbors and citizens of the city of Westminster for the long haul throughout thoughtful and sustainable design, as well as spirit of cooperation with all the stakeholders. We generally do not flip our buildings or otherwise sell to others, and actually own and operate a nonprofit management company that oversees all of our buildings. Although a very small dent in the monumental problem, especially for Southern California, again, as Eric articulately mentioned, our project proposes to provide more than 50 units of affordable housing for elderly, low-income residents. Not only would this project provide some relief to much-needed affordable housing in the city of Westminster, would also satisfy state-sanctioned RENA requirements that are critically needed at the affordable level, again, like staff mentioned earlier. We respectfully ask for your support and approval of our project tonight. Thank you.
Thank you for your time and consideration. My name is Rush Porter, the Entitlement Project Manager for RHF, and I think these guys have covered it pretty well, so I'll make it short, but I'm here to help answer any questions. Thank you.
All right, before we open the remainder of the public hearing, I'd like to see if the commissioners have any questions for the applicant.
I do.
Go ahead.
Okay. Just explain to me, what was the reason that you did the setback in the back almost double, and you gave only 4 inches in the front?
Setback in the rear was doubled because it was a function of providing parking in the back as well as a fire access lane. But it's also, the most reasonable area to provide relief between ourselves and the single-family housing to the back.
I mean, just 4 inches doesn't click on my mind somehow. That's very minor setback here.
Yeah.
Barely nothing.
Right.
There's nothing you could do about it to make it at least give us a little
There's
setback.
nothing we can do about that.
Nothing can be done about it?
Yeah.
Nothing?
Yeah.
Okay.
If I can answer that, Commissioner Hamadi. part of our goal there was to minimize the line of sight impacts from the R1 residential behind us. The more we scoot that building away from the street, the more it gets into the line of sight of the buildings behind us, and we were really trying to mitigate that. So the more we pushed it toward the street, we felt that that was mitigating any potential line of sight impacts in the R1 residential behind us. So that was done in consideration of the neighbors.
Okay, thank you.
May I have a question, please? Mr. Chair?
Yes, Tony, go ahead.
Right. I have a question regarding the setback. You talk about the front, no, the back and the side. How about front? You reduce from 20 feet to 4 inch. What is the reason to reduce to that much?
As Bob mentioned, it was primarily, well, as I mentioned, it was a fire access road issue, but also primarily a line of sight issue for consideration to the neighbors in the back.
Okay. And another question is, do you have, your presentation, you have 19 parkings. And do you have any allocate for visitor parkings in case any visitor or any people want to visit the place?
Currently, we have contemplated 2 guest spaces, 2 staff spaces, 4 ADA spaces, and 11 resident spaces.
I see. And how about charging stations for electric
Will be
vehicle?
pre-wired for charging stations.
How many?
Noel, you recall how many? 2.
Only 2?
But if demand necessitates, we'll wire for more.
I see.
State requirement is 2.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, I have a couple questions. Jameson, did you? No? Okay. Could we go back to the slide, the front elevation that was in the applicant's project here? Okay, this is good. Okay, so we have the front, the street elevation. We have the west. Which is the street elevation again?
The west.
West side. Okay, that's. Pardon? Top left, okay, that's the front, okay. And then, was there any consideration given, now the rear elevation faces the residential?
Was there any consideration to the?
Well, my question is the rear elevation, does that face the residential, the single-family residential?
There's residential on the south, north, and east.
And east, okay, so my question would be, it seems like there's reasonable detail on the west, south, and north, but the east just kind of goes flat.
Well, I'd point out that the east also has that middle section is a landscape courtyard. So frankly, the eastern elevation is going to be probably the most aesthetically appealing because there's obviously a lot more articulation, and because the building's moving from front to way deep to front again, and it will have a landscape courtyard.
Oh, my point is not from the residents of the project, but from the residents in the surrounding area who are behind. You're concerned about them. You set your project back 20 feet or so you could allow parking. So my question is, why is your east elevation so boring and the other elevations are pretty decent?
Well, our rear setback, which is the east elevation setback, is 40 feet, 49 feet?
49 and a half, I think.
49 and a half feet. So we were provided additional setback from the rear elevation. In addition, again, design is subjective, but in my opinion, that eastern elevation is probably the most aesthetically appealing, or second most aesthetically appealing elevation of the building, because there's a lot more movement in the architecture of the building itself, because that's the U shape, and you're seeing the inside of the U, plus there's going to be a landscape courtyard. So there'll be trees going on it.
That's fine. And then the second speaker for the applicant, he mentioned that something about stakeholders. Did you make an effort to talk with the members of the community surrounding your property?
We did not.
Why is that?
We feel we have a high-quality project. In addition, because of state housing law, we have a matter of right approval, in our opinion.
You have a matter of right approval, but wouldn't it just be you're a nonprofit? You're talking about doing what's right, doing what's good for the community of Westminster, and you didn't talk to the people around just to let them know what's going on?
We did not.
Okay, let's see. Oh, and the setback on the You had mentioned the setback on the previous project. You showed the previous elevation, the front elevation on the previous project. And the project went further to the back. Well, what was the setback on the previous project, front setback, do you recall?
My memory's failing. I think it was 20 feet.
Okay.
It was probably about 20 feet.
It's about 20 feet, which is the minimum.
Okay. And have you looked at any way of, within that 4-inch area, 4-inch setback, to do something that could be innovative in the way of making it more attractive?
We're pretty limited on the innovation that we can achieve in a 4-inch setback. You know, really, the focus was on the architecture. Really, this is a high quality. The materials and the elevation will be high quality. Concrete, plaster, hardy board, various iron railing. And again, the architecture is I call it a modern farmhouse, which is very much in style nowadays.
Okay, thank you.
Just a couple questions. Returning to the topic of parking, there's been a lot of consternation in the community about the number of parking spaces and the impact in that area. Recognizing under state law you're not required to provide any, and I'm thankful you didn't stick us with 0, and you are providing 19 spaces. You talked a little bit about the factors that went into the parking analysis and how you arrived at the number. Was there, other than just looking at these factors, was there a formula? How did you arrive at 19, I guess is the question.
Well, 19, frankly, we would provide more if the site constraints allowed us to provide more. So that's a bottom line. But it is a low number, we'll acknowledge that, but it's within, comparable to other RHF projects, that where about 30% of the residents, a little less than 30% of the residents actually have cars in similar urban situations. Los Angeles being an example.
And then just, again, sticking with parking, one concern I have is the spillover effect on there's a synagogue in the area, there's a church, and just kind of piggybacking on what Commissioner Anderson, I would think it'd be really great if the applicant established a relationship with those two entities so that if there is issues, it can be.
Well, we do anticipate some of our residents will be certainly members of those churches, synagogues. I think there's 3 nearby. So those relationships will be built into the residence, and if it becomes a problem, that's something we'll address at the property owner level.
Thank you.
I do have one question myself. When it comes to the 4-inch setback, my question is, you have street windows at street level with no barrier in between. Crime a consideration for you guys? I mean, what can we do to those windows, for example, to make sure that they're safe and secure, at least on the first level?
Well, I think keeping those windows locked and secure is no different as keeping the similar condition for the other windows on the street.
Sure, but other residents have a fence on their property. There's a barrier. There's space in between the sidewalk and the window.
Right.
And some people just get agitated for no reason, and next thing you know, they're throwing something at the glass. They're throwing bricks, and it's very easily accessible when the sidewalk is 4 inches away. I can touch your window.
Right.
You understand? So there's a safety concern when it comes to a street window that close to the sidewalk. Has any provision or thought process been brought up for safety and security? I do know that the project has cameras, but that doesn't keep somebody from breaking a window.
Right. The project will be 24 monitored by cameras. There's an on-site property manager, and it'll be fully occupied. Beyond putting bars on windows, which nobody wants.
No, you can't do that.
No, we have not. There's no other consideration for safety.
I
didn't think that'd be a consideration in Westminster.
I don't know, triple pane glass, something, anything.
Yeah.
Some kind of special glazing on the glass on the first floor, something like that.
I don't see how triple pane glass or glazing is going to prevent a brick coming through somebody's window.
It actually can. There's technology that exists that'll stop bullets.
We're happy to look into that.
Okay. That was my one question, is about the security of the building.
I have one more question.
One more question? Go ahead.
To the staff, I have a quick question to the staff. Do we have any building or any houses in the city of Westminster with 4 inches front setback?
We don't have the date.
So this is the first thing ever. Okay.
Yeah, Commissioner Hamadi, I can respond to that. Nothing in Westminster.
I'm not finished yet. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, sir.
Go ahead. Respond to it. Go ahead.
Well, just in response to your question about a 4-inch setback, in the city of Garden Grove, on, it would be Garden Grove Boulevard, just east of Euclid, there is a project that has about a 4-inch setback, and it's not a pretty site, and it's a residential. And I realize we're dealing with state mandates here, but it's not a pretty site.
Did you have one more question?
Yeah, finish. If the project is approved, for the people that comes after, will they be allowed the same thing, 4-inch setback?
Is your question directed at the
I'm
applicant?
talking to
or
the staff,
city?
to the staff.
We'll wait on staff questions till after. I want to address the applicant so we can
Okay.
continue with the public hearing.
Okay.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Just that, I believe that
I have
anyone can put a ladder and break that glass and get inside the place.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I have 2 questions. Regarding the pH, that means person household. In the table, figure 1, you tell only 1 pH, that 1 person in the household, 2 and 3. In case the family has 3 or more than 3, can they come into this place to live in here?
Bob?
Yeah, Commissioner Bowie, I think the example, the chart was just an example of different incomes and AMI levels. This building being senior, restricted to age to 55 and over, will be 1, maybe 2 residents per unit. That's all they'll be allowed. They'll be in the lease, and those will be house rules. So we'll never have more than 2 residents. Unless someone's visiting, I think there's rules where they can visit for 10 days or so. But as far as long-term tenants, it'll be restricted to 1 or 2 per unit.
But in case they have 2 kids return to
No kids.
stay with the...
No kids.
No kids?
55 and over. Yeah.
Well, so it's just for the seniority only, right?
Seniors only, yeah.
Oh,
You might qualify.
No, I don't. I am overqualified.
Tony's only 24.
Can I ask
in dog years.
Can I ask some question about utility inside?
No.
Okay.
No utility questions at this time for the applicant.
All right.
Anything else for the applicant?
No.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you, gentlemen, for your
Thank you.
time. Appreciate it. Clerk, if you wouldn't mind, let's call up our first public hearing speaker.
Absolutely, Chair. We'll go ahead and first call Robert McDearman. I hope I said it right.
Ladies and gentlemen of the commission, I oppose this project. My name is Robert McDearman. I live within 35 feet of the proposed development, P.O. Box 1, Westminster. I believe this project will cause detrimental harm to the neighborhood in regards to health and safety, mainly because of a flooding issue that occurs at the intersection of Milton and Heffley. This intersection completely covers water and strong rainstorms and completely covers the sidewalk across the street. I've submitted images and video to the planning department showing 11 inches of water in the gutter. There's a taller than average curb here at 8 inches tall versus the standard 6 inches. So the water is 3 inches over the curb. Right now, most water is absorbed into the dirt lot from the property. When paved over, where will this runoff go? No doubt some sort of runoff retention will be part of this project, but where will that water eventually go? With climate changes, ever increasingly extreme weather events, one wonders if several days of good rain might overwhelm this retention and cause further runoff overwhelming the intersection. The project promotes itself as being pedestrian friendly, but the general area is not pedestrian friendly in storms. I also wonder what effect this may have on emergency vehicles, as there is a firehouse on Heffley and the route through Milton is the route these vehicles take to exit the area. One other thing, the 4 bus stops that service the area are no longer serviced by 2 bus routes. The 560 line, which used to run into Long Beach, had a route change about February of 2023, where it now turns around at Golden West and heads back to Santa Ana, no longer servicing these bus stops. This change due to a lack of ridership. This clearly shows in the timetable published in the staff report. It conflicts. In addition, the timetable for the 60 line doesn't show stops here at all, although it is posted at the stop that a bus will stop every 24 minutes and will stop, I presume, if flagged. It is clear why these routes have been demoted. On a infographic on OCTA's website, it's a lack of ridership west of Golden West. And they have that infographic. I hope you will consider my concerns If approved, I hope the developer will do the responsible thing and improve this intersection with the proper drainage. Thank you for your time.
Our next speaker is Kim Springer.
Hello, this is my first time to come to one of these meetings. Okay, good evening. My name is Kim Springer, and I've been a resident of Westminster on Busby Circle for over 32 years, and I'm currently a co-captain for our Neighborhood Watch. I'm here to express my concerns regarding item 8.1, the Milton project. Let me start by saying that I am pleased with the fact that this project is earmarked for senior and affordable housing. There is a huge need for this type of development throughout Orange County. However, I do have issues that I believe need to be addressed before the project is approved. As much as I think the design is appealing, it does not fit the look and zoning guidelines of the surrounding area or the neighborhood. The three-story concept in such a small space will overwhelm the street, without mentioning that it would be completely unfair to the residents behind the development on Ida Way. The surrounding neighborhood has many two-story developments, and that should be the extent to which the land can be developed. As important as the design is the fact that the traffic and parking issues associated with the three-story building will also overwhelm the neighborhood. The streets of Milton and Heffley are already used as a thoroughfare to get to Indian Village Tract in Springdale. Imagine how many other people will be using this same road and the impact on it. It is also important to note that only 19 parking spaces have been identified. That begs the question of just how many cars will be added to a street that is already lined with cars and the dangers that it might create. Before making this decision, please look at all the extenuating factors and not just the bottom line. The neighborhood will definitely be impacted and need to be considered as a common courtesy. This development has the potential of lowering property values due to congestion and traffic concerns, not to mention the privacy issues, especially on Ida Way. I've done research on this project too. I've left Bob, you a message a few times with no return call. As far as that 4-inch thing, homeless walk right past there. I do that walk all the time. I'm fighting the homeless situation at Margie Rice Park all the time. So please know the homeless is bad. And 4 inches, it's just terrible. Do seniors really ride a bus? I don't know about that. But I just hope that I understand the laws and the stronghold the state of California is doing. We need to change our laws. Bottom line. But do what's right for the people that are property owners that live behind this project. 2 stories is fine. It fits with everything else in that area. 3 stories is too high. There are people that live on Ida that have pools in their backyard, and you've got windows from these apartments looking into their backyards. Where's their privacy? They pay property taxes. So just please consider all these things. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Amanda Luna.
Hi, I'm Amanda Luna. I have a resident of Westminster. I grew up in Westminster. I moved away to West Garden Grove at 5th grade, and however, being young in California and obviously wanting to own a home, I was unable to buy a single dwelling. So I did purchase a townhome in Heffley Square, which is right in front of the Milton project. I have lived there for almost 3.5 years, building a beautiful family with 2 little girls. I was happy to find out that the Milton project was happening. There was obviously some eyesores of homes that were on Milton already. So being replaced with affordable housing, especially seniors, was a good use of the property. However, finding out that this was now 3 stories high instead of 2 and 54 units instead of what was proposed to be 26, with only 19 parking spots available, has me very concerned. I implore you to ask yourself, is this something that you would want where you live, in your neighborhood, around your kids? We have a lot of young families in my community in Heffley Square with a lot of kids. We already battle parking as it is in our own community, in our own townhome square. It's a concern. We don't want to have to park our cars on the street, but we do. We have visitors, and so will they. 19 parking spots with 2 visitors, 54, 19 parking spots with 2 for visitors. You're trying to tell me that in 54 units, there is not going to be more than 2 visitors to visit their family and their loved ones? Where are those parking spots going to be? They're going to be on the street. That's already lined up from the townhomes across the way, from my property, from the ones down the street, and the houses that are the dwellings that are right by it. It's already lined. It's very frustrating to even think that this is even being considered. There's a lot of traffic already. We experienced this with the Springdale Bridge going down. Milton and Heffley are traveled on all the time. It's where people come from what we call Indian Village to all the accessible things that they explained that are there. But what about the park? What about having parking for families that want to meet at a park? That, the park is there for us. They're not going to be able to park there. That's going to be taken by this new dwelling. It's not accommodating to the families and the people around us that use this to our accessibility. Again, you didn't talk to any of us and the properties around us to know that this is already an issue or any of that, I appreciate your time.
Our next speaker is Pam Grumling.
I'm Pam Gremling. I live in the neighborhood behind the Milton area. I live off of Abraham Avenue. The 3-story is too large, and it isn't going to be fair to the neighbors that back up to that because, like we've already said about the pools in their backyard, the children play in the backyard. I mean, I know the neighbors. And then just having people looking out their window at these children or the families that are trying to have a barbecue or use their pool privately, that's going to be a tough thing. And then also, another concern was the 19 parking spaces. Being a senior myself, my husband's also a senior, we both have cars. I'm sure most people here have cars. Are you seniors? Who's a senior? Okay, do you have more than one car? Okay, so that is, it's a perfect on paper, but it's not gonna work like that. We already have an apartment complex off of Edwards, and all these people park down Rochelle, which is right in our neighborhood, and there's no parking for people that live there. We pay taxes, we own our homes, and people are taking our spots. It's hard for us to find our spots. I have 5 cars. I have 8 people in my house. So yeah, that's something we do need to consider. And I hear there's going to be another townhome project in the makings where Big Lots is, and that's going to be another tons of cars coming in. So just consider the parking for us. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Sean Canuti.
Hello, fellow city council members. My name is Sean Canuti. I live directly on Ida Way. That's going to be backing up to this project. As some of my neighbors have already stated, 3 stories, not acceptable. That 2 stories lines a lot of the neighborhood, and that is more of something that would make more sense. Putting a 3-story where I have a daughter and my wife in a pool in a private backyard setting, that doesn't seem appeasable to me or anybody else. I pay property taxes. I just bought my house in 2022. When we bought, we didn't see a 3-story, let alone a 2-story, going up behind us. One thing to consider, directly behind us is a full-blown construction area house. It's illegal. They're not supposed to be there. City's working on it. But how you're going to have that next to seniors, it's noise all day. I'm talking 6:30 a.m. till 6 p.m. It's all day. There's no parking on our street to begin with. In front of my house, on Milton, on Rochelle, as they mentioned. Parking is an issue, and it has been an issue since I moved there. So these guys can say whatever they want. If you go there at 5 o'clock, 5 to 7 p.m., you're not going to find parking anywhere. So that's a huge issue. Another issue that I have is the homeless people. We have a Motel 6 that is directly next to In-N-Out, which is on Westminster and Willow. Our neighborhood is canvassed with homeless, criminals, and already some type of low-income people, not necessarily seniors. My car was recently just broken in from a guy just walking on the street, opening the car. It happens all the time. We've had slap houses in our neighborhood. We've had criminals that have got evicted. The last thing we need is a huge building to the back of our wall, as you guys mentioned, a 4-inch setback from the other side of that can be directly accessed. I mean, where's the safety, guys? There's no concern for any of us that are taxpayers and that actually own our homes and take care of our homes. You know, I don't want to throw salt on their wound, but these guys can say whatever they want about being nonprofit and doing the right thing and helping seniors. Let's just be honest. These guys are snakes. They want to line their pockets. It's all about money in the end. It's not about helping seniors or making the world a better place. These guys are doing this for a reason. It's to line their pockets, and I don't see how this helps the city. Another thing to consider real quick is seniors, as they've mentioned, they all have cars. My parents are seniors. They each have 2 cars. They drive everywhere. So there's not going to be any parking with these guys. And walking to a bus a half mile, if they can't drive, how the heck are they going to get to the bus in a half mile? You think these guys are going to walk there? I mean, I don't understand the thing here. So with that being said, I really hope you guys take a deep look into this. This is not right for the residents. I understand what they're trying to do, but it doesn't work where we live. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Terry Raines.
Hi, I have advocated for a truly affordable housing project for our seniors for years, but this isn't it yet. Only 6 extremely low income units is not enough. The average Social Security annual income is $21,204, just 21% of the AMI. Seniors 60 plus make up 1/4 of our population, are the fastest growing segment. Most struggle to remain safely housed and have enough food to eat, and many are at serious risk of becoming homeless. This project should have at least 12 extremely low income units, not 6. I understand applicable state laws. As I told Eric last year, just because you can doesn't mean you should. Only 11 of the 19 parking spaces are for residents 55 plus in 53 units. Per the FHA, 83% of those 65 and over drive. Add 55 to 64 and it's well over 90%. Facts, why more parking is needed to safeguard the health, safety, and welfare of our seniors. 1, OCTA bus routes. Error. Route 560 does not stop at Westminster and Willow or Edwards. Only Route 60 does, confirmed by OCTA. The closest north-south route stop is a full mile away. 2, mobility. 40% of persons 65 plus have mobility limitations measured by their ability to walk just 1/4 of a mile. 3, health conditions and disabilities. 40% of persons 65 plus have at least one disabling condition. A reasonable accommodation would be an assigned parking space on site. Why is the one elevator so far from the ADA parking spaces? 4, safety. Seniors are more vulnerable to accidents and falls and are twice as likely to be victimized by robbery or assault near their home versus younger adults. Providing designated parking spaces on site reduces the likelihood of falls, lawsuits, and violent crime. 5, caregivers. Seniors who rely on help from caregivers or family need parking for their support persons to visit, pick up, and drop them off, and to assist them in their home. 6, independence. Having dedicated parking spaces allows seniors to maintain independence with easy access to their vehicles for travel to medical appointments, grocery stores, etc. The walkability score for this site is only 65 of 100. 7, social. Designated parking spaces facilitate seniors attending social gatherings, community events, and visits with family and friends, preventing dangerous isolation. RHF's mission statement, quote, to provide affordable housing and service coordination for persons with limited income in an inclusive environment that enhances their quality of life physically, mentally, and spiritually, unquote. Not providing enough on-site parking for the seniors who need it grossly fails this mission. Full disclosure, I am an extremely low-income senior with disabling health conditions, and by the grace of God, I now have a car and a DMV disabled placard. I desperately need to rent one of these extremely low-income units in order to remain in Westminster. I even completed the RHF's online senior application, and I have it. that because of my health conditions, I would need an assigned parking spot on site. I am asking the applicant to try and reconfigure the site plan, reduce the side or rear setbacks, change the ingress, egress design, or reduce units to add more parking. Designate 12 or more as extremely low income and add free high speed and utilities. Thank you. And why did you remove 17?
Our next speaker is Roger Mindrum.
Good evening, Roger Mindrum, resident of Westminster. I live by the golden rule. I guarantee you, none of you people would stand for this being built right behind your backyards, especially when you have a pool. You are going to ruin these people's lives. I would go completely mental if this was built right behind me. 3 stories, and every single home that I've seen rebuilt around the city and in Fountain Valley and all these areas around here, they get lifted. The whole entire foundation gets lifted up like 2 or 3 feet. So now that 2-story house is 10 feet higher than the 2-story house right next to it. The parking situation is ridiculous. And the state laws just proves that there's a bunch of freaking idiots running this state. Not only Governor Newsom, but all the legislators that did this. This is ridiculous. I can't imagine anybody. The entire neighborhood, look at it. Look at the egress of the exit of this building 4 inches from the sidewalk. Imagine the practicality of driving in your car or a delivery truck with groceries or supplies or a maintenance truck pulling out of that driveway. How do you look left? How do you look right? Do you even know that the other businesses in that neighborhood, is there still a tow company, Country City Tow, at the end of that street? This, tow drivers, have you ever seen those guys drive? Not very safe. 4-inch setback? Man, this is ridiculous. This is a nightmare. Is it a nightmare or is it a fantasy? Or is it a nightmare fantasy? Ridiculous. I know you guys are going to be, hands are tied by the state law, and you're going to be considering, how do I vote no on this and not get the city sued? And that's probably your biggest challenge. Because I think I can tell none of you would want to live in that neighborhood. And imagine this gentleman that just bought his house 2 years ago. And 2 years ago, with the home prices that are now, he probably paid $800,000, $900,000, $1 million for his home, and then this goes up? God bless you, man. Good luck.
Our next speaker is Nick. I don't know how to say your last name, I'm sorry. Nick P, as in Paul. If you could say your name for the record, please,
Thanks.
Nick.
Papaduke.
Papaduke?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is obviously a mistake for obvious reasons. I'm a senior citizen. All my friends drive. I drive. The law may say that you only need 1/3 of the parking spots for that. But it's wrong, but it's legal. I want to thank Commissioner Bowie for bringing up, very astutely bringing up conflict of interest problems. This property had problems from a council member the last time they voted on this. He was told by the the attorney that it was wrong, but it's legal. And you won't be sued, but it's very unseemly. And that was good enough for him, and he accepted the kickbacks. And we don't blame you guys for kickbacks. But he accepted them and voted on an issue for the person who donated money to him. I'd appreciate it if people kept that in mind. The 4-inch clearance is ludicrous. That's absolutely ludicrous. It's just, you couldn't open your windows if you lived in those rooms. I'm an older person. I've been known to go in my backyard in my boxers and t-shirt. I live in that neighborhood over there. They're not going to be able to do, they're going to be a fishbowl. Everybody's backyard is going to be a fishbowl from that the third floor. I'd like to reiterate what one of the speakers before said to me. Consider what would happen if this happened where you live. If suddenly your backyard, somebody was 20 yards up in the air and just looked down in, and your front window was 8 inches from passersby, many of whom are homeless, because there's homeless problems in the park, there's homeless problems around big lots, and the parking problem, there are parking problems there. That's real. That's real. The project went up on Willow Street, and people in my neighborhood over there had a lot of concerns about it. And they really didn't happen because there really weren't parking problems there, and there's not a lot of traffic. They're close to the street, but they've got an 8-foot wall in front of it. It's a bummer for their view, but it makes sense. They have, I think, 3rd floors, but they're not looking down into their neighbors. It butts up against an industrial area, and there's a church, there's a school across the street. That makes sense. This doesn't make sense at all. It should be rejected immediately. I don't know what the first proposal looks like, but it has to look better than this. The law may say 19 parking spaces are enough, but that's ludicrous. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is David Johnson.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for this opportunity. So, although I am an elected trustee in a school district, I do not speak on behalf of anyone else other than myself. So, let's start with that. But I have looked into bulletproof glass because we want to keep our kids safe. It's something I personally did, and it does exist. It's not fictitious, and I would think that anyone that is in the construction industry would know that this exists. And anyone that says to you that it doesn't exist is being disingenuous with you. He's disingenuous with you. Now, please note that when they closed the Santa Ana River, our homelessness doubled. And with homelessness, you get blight. And with blight, nothing else will sink a city greater and faster than downward spiral of blight. 2 years later, it doubled again. At this point, we are almost 4 times more than we had 10 years ago. And you've experienced it when you've driven by this area. So I live in Indian Village, which is nearby. We go through there a lot, down Heffley by the temple and by the church and by the Margie L. Rice Park. And we have problems there. With that comes fentanyl problems. With that comes theft problems. With this blight is tearing down this city. And on the west side of our city, where this is, more than just about any other area of our city. Blight is killing us, and this is what this is going to bring. More blight. We need to find a way to stop this. I was just at the police officers awards and promotions tonight. That's why I was a little late here. Over 22 officers were recognized for saving lives because of fentanyl, which comes with the blight. The blight in this city is going through the roof. You have to find a way. And I know that the state of California has handcuffed you with certain things that make it difficult for you to deny. But whether it be the flooding, whether it be Melrose, whether it be finding a way to rezone this area so that no more R2 can be built in this area, whatever you have to do, please find a way to stop the blight. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Devora Mariscal.
Deborah Mariscal, Westminster, since 2000. What they said. All of it. So a couple of things. So we do have to park on the street where I live. I'm behind the Honda dealer. My car was hit and run. Nobody stopped. You know, thankfully the damage wasn't too bad, but it's going to be worse if you don't have parking over there. So with the that's one thing, but having a one-way entrance and exit in that particular place, I just took an AARP driving class, and the things that they talked about were just amazing. But people don't drive as well as we used to when we get older. Obviously, I'm a senior, so there's issues, there's definitely issues with that. For the gentleman that just bought his house, I'm so sorry. We don't use our backyard anymore for family things because we do have a second-story house next to us. When our daughter was younger, we would go out and play games and be in our bathing suits and stuff. We don't have a pool or anything, but we don't do that now. But I don't have a 3-story unit of people that may or may not have the best intentions of looking at my family, and will not put up with it. And to the Deputy City Attorney, you're concerned about us being sued. We're going to go bankrupt anyway. Sue us.
And our final speaker is Tim Hogan.
Good evening. I usually come to these things prepared, but I just came here to support everyone. I've been busy the last couple of weeks here, just found out about this. But sitting here listening to this, just madness, I had a couple of questions. Just because you can get a waiver of 84% doesn't mean you have to ask for it. Good neighbors are good neighbors. Asked about, well, did you ever go and talk to the people in the temple or the church? Well, our residents are going to go over there. Wow, big. Our residents are going to take care of our public relations. A 4-inch setback. We've given you more than that in the chairs you're sitting in. These apartments are sardine cans. Why don't you just cut a couple of more feet out of them and move the building back? What difference is it going to make to somebody if they're sitting with their feet 4 inches away from the wall or if their feet are 2 inches? It just doesn't seem to matter with you guys. So go ahead and pull it back so that we can get a little more space there in the front. The windows are right there on the edge. And the answer was, well, they'll just keep the windows closed. What kind of air conditioning are you putting in those things? I mean, come on, you got to tell us. When you get back up here, tell us what type of air conditioning you're going to be putting into those things and how these people that have this, low rent, low income are going to be able to afford all of this air conditioning to keep their rooms or to keep their places well because their windows are shut. Oh, you can make them bulletproof and all that, but if you're having to keep them shut all the time, it's just madness. What I'm wondering is, why aren't we going to our representatives and asking them to change these rules? We don't have to wait for them to sue us. Let's go to them. They're the ones that created it. Let's go to them and ask them, get rid of it. Make it different. Don't allow. I'll leave it at that. We can do better. Thank you.
Chair, you have no further speakers.
I would actually like to forward the applicant 3 more minutes if any of the chairmen don't have an objection to rebut any of the public comments. You guys okay with that? Giving them 3 more minutes? Applicant, would you like 3 more minutes to rebut any of the public comment?
Mr. Chair, thank you for the opportunity to speak again. I do sympathize. Again, as I mentioned, I'm on my own planning commission, and we live in a different world with SB 330, density bonus law, the alphabet soup, and numerous of state laws that are being thrown in our face every day. And I agree with the crowd. If you want change, you have to consider who your state and federal elected leadership is. That being said, we still stand behind that this is a very appropriate project for Westminster. I really appreciate the public process here. Not to talk about Tustin, but it's great to see this active community involvement. Some of our hearings are about 15 minutes long. I say we're the most overpaid planning commission in Orange County sometimes. But this, I hear a request for more affordable housing. I hear requests that, people can, that there's too many cars, that seniors always have 2 or more cars, they have lots of cars. I'd ask, you to consider that this, and this is coming from a snake myself, because it took me a long time to figure out and put myself in the shoes of our potential residents. They don't have the benefit of owning a home, having the equity in the home, and affording a car. That's a simple fact of it. With food costs and housing costs and auto costs, it's a different demographic we're talking about here. That just hasn't had the luxury of home ownership. But again, I do sympathize. This is a different world we live in, and it's difficult. As servants, we're all trying to understand how to best serve our constituencies while keeping us out of liability. But this, as I mentioned, this is a great organization, and this is a product this is a project that's going to help many people, many seniors. So I thank you again for your time, your consideration. But we're open for more questions if you need them.
Thank you. Any commissioners have any questions for any of the public hearing comments? Does anybody need to call anybody back up?
Well, I had a question. There were a couple of questions that I think were raised by the audience, and maybe the applicant can help us. There's apparently one elevator in the project, and it's not near the handicapped area.
Yeah, due to the Vice Chair Anderson, due to the senior nature of the building, we always include 2 elevators. Just in case one elevator goes down, you don't want to have the seniors going up staircases. So this building will have 2 elevators.
And one of them will be near the handicapped?
I'm not exactly sure what the configuration of the location, but I'm not sure. It depends on where we put the handicap spots. Now, going back to the reasonable accommodation that we heard, if and when any applicant comes into the building and they have a reasonable accommodation that gets approved, they do get assigned a handicap spot or a spot that's theirs basically for due to their reasonable accommodation. So,
And how many of those reasonable accommodation spots are there?
That's the operations side, our property management side that handles that. We see it every now and then. It's not extremely common, but every now and then you do see a reasonable accommodation request. Whether it's actually approved on its merit is a different question. But if it's something that merits an accommodation for parking, we would certainly grant it under state law.
Okay, and then another question that was raised by the audience, air conditioning. Are these units air conditioned?
Absolutely. I'm not sure if they're P-tax or if they're mini splits. Yeah, so yes, they are air conditioned.
All the units are air conditioned?
Correct.
Okay. And then just a final question. Based on all the comments you heard this evening, when you come in and evaluate a piece of property, you look at a piece of property, then do you look around to see, okay, if we were to develop this at a point where we could make money, and that's okay, nothing wrong with making money, but then what impact is that going to have? What impact is that going to have on privacy, on parking, on just aesthetics? Do you look at that? Now, the state law doesn't say that you have to develop this property. The state says you may develop this property, but you as a nonprofit and a caring individual and a caring concern, you could evaluate the property and say, by golly, we think we better move on because our project just wouldn't fit and it's going to cause a lot of grief for a lot of the surrounding people. So is that something you do, or do you just look at the dollar side?
Well, I think the first point of clarification is, as a nonprofit, there is no single individual that is profiting from this project. We're a mission-based, faith-based organization. We have been since 1961. We were started by the United Church of Christ. And all of the money that we make goes back into our mission in providing affordable housing, in remodeling, refreshing our existing portfolio of affordable housing so that our tenants and our residents have a decent place to stay. Back to your point, the reason we have a homeless issue is because of lack of affordable housing. So while we can look at Orange County and say, you know, there's certain parts of the county, Westminster, that, you know, maybe doesn't want affordable housing, it's not doing anything for the homeless problem. So, you know, I think that's the other side of the coin that we look at when we look at a site. We don't do homeless housing. There will be no homeless occupants in our building. These will be low-income seniors, for the most part on Social Security income. Going back to Eric's point, you know, if you're paying $600-700 a month in rent and you're making $1,000, you can't afford a car. You're not going to afford gas. You're not going to afford insurance. For the most part, these people aren't going to be driving because of their finances. On the other point of, you know, profit and making money, without getting into the deeper conversation here, we purchased this site when interest rates were much lower than they are today. We're putting a tremendous amount of money of our own into this project to make it feasible. Without tax credits, without the layers of financing that the state provides, there's no way we could ever support a project like this. So it's an absolute misnomer to think, you know, we're going to be rolling in money when we build this project. Nothing could be further from the truth.
No, and I didn't make that statement. My point is that when you evaluate a piece of property, you go beyond the money issue and look around, what's the impact of this project going to have to the community? Because you're saying you want to make, this is going to be for the good of the community. I didn't hear anybody get up to speak this evening that said, we're glad this is coming in.
Sure. You know, I think for the most part, your general plan and the state laws guide the type of intensity and uses of, you know, land in your jurisdiction. Those are certain things that we look at. I think usually staff does impact studies on your land uses and the different densities allowed by your different zoning regulations. And, you know, I think for the most part, that drives our decision as to where we go to try to provide affordable housing. And, you know, this area, as you know, is zoned higher density, which kind of was the first litmus test, if you will, for us and how we look at developing in certain areas. You know, we're confident that the staff in the city has already done their homework as to why this area would merit higher density housing. And so, you know, I think we just kind of look at it as an opportunity to be able to provide affordable housing in line with your general plan and your zoning laws.
Well, and at this point, I think the general plan and the zoning laws are becoming less and less important when faced with the state regulations. That's what really makes this happen. If you were coming in under an R4 without all these additional benefits, you wouldn't be where you are today. It would be, you could make it, maybe make it affordable, maybe you couldn't, but it wouldn't be what it is today. So the state has superseded the city in this case, and this is the situation, and until that changes, you know, life goes on as it is. But it would be nice if developers would take a look at the impact of their developments before they proceed, and maybe talk to the people in the area and find out what their thoughts. Thank you.
Understood. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. You stated that the lack of affordable housing created a lot of homeless. So would you allow those people on Walmart, the homeless people and the one by Albertson, live in your units?
Yeah, so you would have to
help with that in your units? Would you help that?
I'm sorry?
Would you help them to be in your units?
The existing homeless population?
No, the one all over Walmart and Albertson. Those are homeless people, right?
Yeah, insofar that, you know, we garner financing from the state, the Tax Credit Allocation Committee in Sacramento allocates tax credits for projects like this one. And we have to abide by certain fair housing rules as to who we allow and who we advertise to and how we solicit to get these residents. If we were to go out on the street and say, hey, I want you to come into my building, we would probably violate some of those rules. So we have to be very fair and transparent in our advertising and who we invite to come into this building. Typically, we start with the Orange County Housing Authority and the seniors that might be on that waiting list looking to move into a building that is affordable for them, usually near their family. You know, if there's a homeless person and they have an income and they're over 55, potentially they would qualify, but just with the challenges of being homeless, I think, you know, it would be a little bit, others would have priority, let's say, because of the way that the waiting list operates. So I don't know if I answered your question or not. But
you did. Okay.
Yeah.
Another question. You stated also that you don't make money out of this project. So you and your staff work everything for free? No.
I'm on salary.
Volunteer? I mean, I understand, for the love of God, you just do it for free, we don't get nothing? How do you pay your bills?
We're paying money to build this project.
So you're getting money for yourself and for everyone else?
We're paying money to build this project.
Simple as that, just clarify that you're getting paid, simple.
Yeah. No, we're paying out of our pocket to build this project.
So
and the money we get back will be in the way of fees we'll generate by managing the project. If this was a purely capitalistic venture, we would go broke. Without the subsidies of the tax credits at the state level, without trust funds, affordable housing trust funds that we have access to because of our 63-year tenure and our very successful career in affordable housing, all that money that you're mentioning goes into projects like this. So it's not like I get a huge bonus or have a payday. All that money that we accumulate go into projects like this. So we're end up paying to build this project is the raw truth.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I heard the neighbors surrounding your project complaining, bring up the issue about parking space. Have you did any research or studies on public parking in the area, and what is the result?
Yeah, I might have to ask for help on that one. Absolutely, we're required to do studies, impact studies for any development, and I believe there's impact studies.
There are, Tony, staff can address that, actually.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, can you put the screen on? This is a screen that our public transportation, traffic engineers has prepared. They can come up and provide additional information. However, this basically demonstrates the actual observation of street parking availability, which was conducted on a Friday and a Saturday. In the evening hours at 9:30 p.m. and 10:30 p.m. And along the yellow highlighted street, that is the Milton, from Willow Lane to Heffley Street, that is 40% occupied, heavily focused near at the intersection. And the traffic engineers were able to observe 25 parking spaces available. Along the Milton, which is highlighted in green, 75% of that street parking is available, and that's about 17 parking spaces. Along Heffley, only about 50% is occupied, heavily focused more towards the intersection and around the apartment complexes. And the blue, which is off Heffley, is about 10% occupied. So there are about 50 parking spaces, street parking spaces. So these are the availability of open parking spaces that are available along streets, city streets.
Any other questions?
No.
Okay, since there's no other questions for the public, I'd like to close the public hearing. Commissioners, if you like, you can ask additional questions of staff, or go ahead and make your comments about this case. We can discuss it.
Yeah, I'll start off here since we've got it up on the screen here that Sandy put up. If you could put, Sandy, if you could put that back, the parking, street parking, please. Thank you. Okay, the little white rectangle, that's the project. And then you see, then I'm thinking to myself, okay, if I go to the end of Heffley, way up there, right at the top, way up there, that's a hike if I've got a bag of groceries and I've got to get to my unit. Or if I go all the way up to the very top of, what is it, Milton, way up to the north there, that's another hike. So I don't see where some of this street parking, yes, there are spaces available. Is it practical? No, I don't think so.
I have a question for staff. And I already know the answer to this question, but it's come up tonight and I've heard it elsewhere. Is it within the power of this commission or the city council to rezone this area to defeat this project? That would be unlawful, correct? I just wanted clarity on that.
That would be unlawful at this point. You're looking at the application and what the zoning is on the date that the application was deemed complete.
And that, a part of that is at one of the newest legislation, I believe the Senate Bill 330, I'm probably getting the number wrong. And when that bill was enacted, the zoning in place at that time, it has to remain that. It cannot be rezoned to defeat a project, correct?
Correct. Correct.
Thank you.
I have a question to the staff. When I look at the plan of they submit to you, did you check the utilities available for that project? For example, water pressure to supply to that area, is it sufficient so that it will not affect the neighbor around it? And also electricity, and especially whether you will use gas or electricity for equipments inside the each unit.
Yes, I think I can answer that, Commissioner Bowie. This project was reviewed by all the city staff, all the departments, Orange County Fire Authority, Police Department, et cetera, and all of them concluded that all of those public safety requirements of the city, of the county, and the state can be met. There's adequate water pressure to serve the project. There's adequate fire protection. And of course, the project has to comply with all those safety regulations during the construction process.
Okay. Back to my question. The 4 inches. Will that be a normal thing for everyone to use that and able to build 4 inches? Or just going to be only one thing project?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
The 4 inches setback, will it be an ongoing thing down the road? Would everyone else can apply and then will be accepted, or just this project only?
Steve, I think I can answer that. Other projects would still have to comply with the city's front setback requirement. If it was another density bonus project that required that waiver to build the project as proposed for an affordable project, then they may also be entitled to the 4-inch.
Okay, thank you.
May I have one more question? Okay, by looking at the plan for 1 bedroom to 2 bedroom, the 2 bedroom has a washer and dryer. However, the 1 bedroom didn't have the washer and dryer. So in that case, did you have sufficient place for the people who use in 1 bedroom to do washing and drying their clothes?
Yes, thank you. There's no code requirement for a washer and dryer and a unit, but the applicant may be able to answer why there are no washer and dryers in the proposed 1-bedroom units.
Okay, thank you.
Chair, I have more of a comment than a question.
Absolutely, go ahead.
Okay, so I have a couple comments I want to make. First, starting with the really positive, I really want to thank staff. I thought the materials you gathered and prepared were excellent. Really, I can tell a lot of hard work and time went into it. And I just want you to know I really appreciate that. It answered a lot of my questions, and really, I thought a really good job. Now, to kind of get on a soapbox for a minute, I just really want to express my personal frustration with the erosion of local control. The fact that we have politicians in Sacramento taking away our ability to have input in projects like this. I find it frustrating as a commissioner. You know, obviously we came here wanting to impact our community, and to not be able to do that is very frustrating for me. You know, I think the fact that politicians in Sacramento and San Francisco think they know what's good for Westminster when they don't live here is you know, it's very frustrating. And I think that's a sentiment that's shared by pretty much all commissioners. I do want to focus on a little bit of positive, again, going now back to the positive. Westminster needs low-income housing, we really do. We have a lack of housing. It needs investment, it needs development. So there are good aspects to this, and so I don't want to just, you know, there's a lot of negative and there's a lot that we're upset about, and we wish we all had input. I would love to have an interactive process with the applicant and really engage and really, you know, work things out. But, you know, we are where we are, and unfortunately, we're constrained. And I just want everybody to know that we hear your frustration. I'm frustrated. I think everybody's frustrated. But I try to focus on the good of this project. There is good that's going to come out of this project. And that's really my comments, I guess.
Thank you for the comments from the public. We've already had public hearing. We appreciate that. I, as the chairman, would just like to thank all of you because you're active citizens. Citizenship is not easy. It requires work. And I'm very encouraged by all of you in the public who've shown up tonight to give your time to talk about this project. There's been many nights where we had nothing to vote on and, you know, no one showed up. So it's great to see everybody here. We really appreciate it, except for, of course, Terry, who's been here several times. I'd also like to echo Commissioner Power on staff and their report. I'm well known for being the first one to want to stand up to California's oversight. Sacramento is taking liberties with our freedoms, and they are eroding local control that you can clearly tell. And some things we have in our control and some things we don't. I look at the flip side of the coin. For me personally, I think, wow, these laws are in place. What could happen? And the what could happen would be a garbage developer that shows up, builds a horrible place for people to live that requires no parking. That maybe they want to build a 2-story, but now there's no parking at all whatsoever. And they could just not even do seniors. They could just build low income because this is already an area that's part of our RENA and housing element that's been designated as potential for low income. And it's a crapshoot at that point. We are rolling the dice with any developer that wants to come in on that property. That's the way it is for the whole city. Somebody tonight brought up big lots. That is a big problem. Big lots may be an issue. If you don't like this one, wait till you get to big lots. We don't know. There's no definitive answer. We don't have a specific plan for that area. We in the city have the ability to control what we build in the future. If we get serious about it now. And we probably, every city's been blindsided by SB 330. Huntington Beach, as you all have friends that live over there, they're taking a different approach. Their approach is they're gonna just do whatever they want and pay the consequences. Like our city attorney or assistant city attorney said tonight, every city that has been sued by a developer has lost. And there's been, I don't know, just about a dozen cases in the last year or so. We run a risk of trying to stand up to projects. We do as a city, and that's an important factor for us to think about when we vote here tonight. But like I was talking about with the flip side of the coin, we have some concerns about this property. We do. I think it's a beautiful property from a lot of aspects. The aesthetics of it are going to look good. The fact that they're willing to provide 24-hour security is good. The fact that they're even looking at shuttle services, we're going to find a developer and a builder that's going to be around long-term on the property is huge. And with every plan and every development, there are trade-offs. You're going to trade fire access for what? Okay, well, now we can't get medical facilities and ambulances in to take care of people. That's going to be a problem. You know, if we don't have enough ingress or egress. There's trade-offs and balances that we have to look as a planning commission and be able to look at those and say, is this the best we can develop it? Probably not. I mean, hey, it'd be great if somebody bought it and just built one house, but nobody's stepping up to do that. We do have a developer under an SB 330 application, and they've brought a beautiful project from an aesthetic standpoint, minus a couple things that I think we need to change. If I'm gonna approve the CUP personally, I would like to see something done to mitigate any potential death or harm to a citizen walking on that street with a 4-inch setback. There needs to be a couple of speed bumps to slow down cars on egress out of that parking, so that way they can't go over 2 miles an hour, 1 mile an hour. Better yet, they make tripwires that you can put in that pavers that would put up a light or something like that to indicate to pedestrians that somebody is exiting. There's a lot of precautions that could be taken to make it for a much safer public benefit upon egress of the parking. And to further point on crime, vandalism, you guys are rolling the dice with a 4-inch setback on your building just gonna get tagged, right? Graffiti is popular in this town. It really is. And having cameras is gonna help, and having your security guard is gonna help. But one thing you wanna do is protect your residents. And I think implementing shatterproof glass film on the lower floor, at least along the city sidewalk, is almost a must at this point, because it's gonna prevent somebody from breaking and entering. They can get into a senior who can't generally defend themselves very quickly in a small place. I think that's a real concern. So I think if we can do some impact-resistant film on the glass, it's gonna make a big difference to make people feel safe. And I think the residents who potentially could be at that project would feel a lot safer with that. Those are my comments for my other commissioners. And, you know, what else? You guys have any other comments you'd like to make?
No.
Okay, no other comments. If you guys have any motions, we're willing to entertain motions on item 8.1.
Well, I'll make a motion, and I wish we didn't have to, but I will make the motion that we approve this. And we've heard a lot of reasons. There's a lot of residents, obviously, who are in opposition, but the reality of the situation is the state of California has decided in Sacramento that they want to tell Westminster and other cities what to do. And they have the power to do it. And it gets real simple. It's it's the golden rule. He who has the gold rules, and Sacramento rules, and they've got the gold. So I will go ahead and make a motion that we approve the project as recommended, or approve as recommended. We're not approving the project, we're approving it as recommended.
I'll second the motion.
Can I ask, the Vice Chair, was that with the changes that staff provided with the
Yes, to
lake
include the lake communication changes.
And for the second, does the second include that?
Yeah, correct. That was my understanding.
Okay, thank you.
Revised. And just before we vote, if I may say one thing, I want to piggyback on what you said, Chair, about litigation. Just for people who don't know me, I'm an attorney. I am a litigator. I'm on the defense side on civil cases. But if I was a plaintiff's attorney, this would be the case I'd want to bring, because you're entitled to fees, and it's very expensive to litigate a case. We can't, and I know there was a speaker who said, well, we're going to go bankrupt anyways. I don't want to be part of pushing the city in bankruptcy. Absolutely not. I'm a homeowner here. I care about the city, and that's the last thing I want to see. And, you know, a part of our role up here is to be stewards of the city, and I don't think signing up the city for a lawsuit, it makes any sense, and that's why I'm seconding that motion.
So we have a motion by Vice Chair Anderson and a second by Commissioner Power.
Thank you, Chair. I'll go ahead and call roll. I will go with Commissioner Bowie,
No.
Commissioner Amade,
Sustain. Abstain, I'm sorry.
Commissioner Power,
Yes.
Vice Chair Anderson,
Yes.
and Chair Wilbert.
Yes.
Motion carries 3-1-0-1. Motion passed.
I have a point of order. When there's a majority that approves, does the abstention become a yes? I believe it does. I just want to clarify.
I told you this would come up. My understanding is that if the city is following Robert's Rules of Order, then no, it just counts as an abstention.
Could I ask staff to research that for next meeting? I'm not sure if that's correct. All right.
Unless the city clerk has,
I believe Commissioner Powers would like that to be researched for the next meeting.
Could we clarify that? Because
So-
I want to make sure that's correct.
yeah, and I'm not sure if the city has its own procedure rules.
Okay.
I apologize, there was some confusion as to Russ was going to be here as well tonight, and I was just going to be here for the housing question.
I think it'd be just good
portion
for commissioners to know for future votes, because my understanding, I think
absolutely
it does.
I had
But maybe that's
checked-
wrong.
I mean, what I do know is three passes, that's it.
It does pass regardless.
Correct.
And I did check this out with another attorney in the firm beforehand, and she grabbed a Robert's Rules, and she said that if a person abstains without a legal reason not to, without a legal reason to abstain, it's as if they were not there, so the vote doesn't count as anything other than an abstention.
Maybe just for the next meeting, we could just
But yes.
get clarity on that. It'd be helpful.
So we have to change the vote now?
So clerk, would you mind reading, just for the record, the planning commission resolution and the number into record so that we can know what we just voted to approve?
Yes, absolutely. So the motion was to approve staff recommendation that the Planning Commission adopt resolution entitled "A Resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of Westminster, California, recommending the mayor and city council approve case number 2023-0646 pertaining to a conditional use permit, development review, and affordable housing density bonus for the development of 54 multifamily units, including 53 lower-income senior housing rental units located at 13800, 13802, and 13812 Milton Avenue in the city of Westminster, California. APN numbers 203-311-13, 16, and 24, and to also include the late communications.
Thank you. With that, we will close agenda item number 8. Unless you have anything to add, Steve, I don't think you need to make any comments. We'll go on to agenda number 9, regular business. I don't think we have any. Any reports? Agenda item number 10, there are none as well. 11, let's go to matters from staff.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair Wilbert. I just wanted to, first of all, thank the staff, Ashton and all the others who were here tonight to make sure that we had a very successful meeting. I want to thank the members of the public for coming tonight and also the Planning Commission for your hard work. That's all. Thank you.
All right, item number 12, matters from the Planning Commission, including AB 1234. Any reports? Any commissioners have anything to announce? All right, I would just like to also echo what Steve said. Thank you to the general public for coming out tonight. We really appreciate your feedback and the time that you invest in this city. Thank you to staff for this report. I know it's been being worked on and mulled over for the last couple of years. It's been a while since this application's been in, so really appreciate your hard work. And for the city council, if you're watching, this is coming to your desk, so get your information down and get ready to be able to approve this project or deny it. It's up to you. We're going to go ahead and move it on over to you. With that being said, I'd like to adjourn tonight's meeting. It is currently, it looks like 8:45. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a good evening.